It's the end of May 2022, and about 3 months ago, Russia started its military operation in the Ukraine, its invasion of the Ukraine. In Western societies and public opinion in Western societies, this war in the Ukraine is usually regarded as unjustified. There's a huge solidarity with Ukraine. Putin is regarded as the aggressor in this conflict. But what do the people in Russia think about this conflict? How is their perception of this war? What do they even know? And do they support Putin and his strategies in the Ukraine? We don't really know a lot about this because it's very, very difficult to get information right now. So given this situation, I was very excited to hear about a research project of a group of young sociologists from St. Petersburg and other cities of Russia, a research that is using qualitative in-depth interviews with people to get more insights in what people in Russia actually think about this war, about this conflict. And I reached out to this group, wanted to hear more about this research, about this project, and I was very happy that Natalia Savelyeva, a member of this group, agreed to make an interview and to record an interview via Zoom. And this is what I will show you in this video. Natalia Savelyeva is actually right now not in Russia, but she's in Washington. She's a fellow at the Center for European Policy Analysis in Washington. So this made also, well, talking about these complicated topics a little bit easier compared to colleagues that are still in Russia. Yeah, it was a very interesting interview. Have a look. Welcome, Natalie. I'm very happy that you're with us today and that you will give us some insight in your research that you and your group are doing in Russia today. Maybe you can introduce yourself a little bit and the group that is behind this research project.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you for having me. That's amazing. I'm a part of a research collective which is called Public Sociology Lab Russia. It is an independent group of young researchers, mostly sociologists and some philosophers. So me and my colleagues and friends, we started building this group. I guess it was about 10 years ago, maybe even 11 years ago, when protest movement in Russia started, like in 2011 in December. I guess one of the biggest post-Soviet protests in Russia after the fraudulent Duma's election. People started going out of the streets and they just wanted to be visible, and they wanted the state saw them and they wanted to be represented. And at that moment, we started working on this protest movement. We started collecting interviews with people who participated in rallies, and then they created some local activist initiatives. We were following them for more than 10 years now. Yeah, and this basically was the moment when our group started to exist. Yeah, and when Russia invaded Ukraine on this February, there was a shocking event, and within several days, we decided that we should follow it somehow and just try to understand what is going on in people's heads. So how they react to that. And also first polls appears. And those first polls, they just showed a huge numbers of support for the special operation. I was yeah, whatever. So what actually people think about all that? And that's how we started working on our current study, which is basically about what different people think about the war or the military operation. But yeah, we try to reach people who have different opinions and who have different positions, supporters, opposers, protesters, people who say, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. So yeah, we just try to grasp all the differences we can find.
Yeah. And there are also students involved in your group.
So yeah, now this project on Russian invasion and people's opinion about that, I think that's pretty special even for us, because before we was working, so there was like, let's say, the core of people in Public Sociology Lab, and we were working like together. But this project, we have a pretty big group of volunteers who is working with us. And I mean, volunteers, that's not some random people, that's also usually sociologists, students of who is studying sociology. So yeah, and that really became a like project. I mean, we don't have any money to support this project, so people really work voluntarily because they believe that now it's important to. It is important thing to understand.
Yeah, it's a really and very important moment right now, and it's great that you do this research. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you talked about these opinion polls, but you also have some criticism of these polls, and think that a qualitative approach with interviews might be better. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There is some general critique toward opinion polls. I mean, like Bourdieu and other people criticize that a lot. But if we're talking more specific about polls in authoritarian regimes, we have here a lot of additional problems with the data. And especially if we're talking about the polls in like the situation of political tension, or like the situation of war. So the first thing is that people are afraid to talk. People don't want to say that they don't support this military operation. Because now in Russia, there is quite, I mean, besides the fact that the president of Russia announced this special military operation, and if you say, I don't support that, basically you say, I don't support Putin's decision sometimes, right? But besides that, there are a lot of new laws now in Russia. So you cannot say that the war is the war. I mean, that's illegal. There is a new law about discreditation of Russian army. You cannot criticize this special military operation. So basically, there is like the only line of truth, and this truth is produced by like Russian state officials. And if you say something which contradicts to what they said, so you violate the law. And in this situation, to answer the question, well, do you support the Russian special military operation? To say no is kind of pretty difficult.
Yeah, of course, I understand.
So now some polling pollsters, they provide us with the answers they get from people with whom they talk, and many of them say like, well, you understand, I can't tell you that I don't support this operation because, you know, this is dangerous. So I'm sorry, I will not talk to you. And in this situation, I guess the qualitative research is very important, because even like big polls, that's still kind of not clear what exactly people, when they say, yeah, I support that, what exactly they support, what they think, what is going on. Do they know about the victims? Do they want to know about victims? Do they know that like half of Ukraine is destroyed now by Russian army? Do you know about all that atrocity, like war crimes, where they got their information? What do they expect? How they see the future of Russia, how they evaluate the effect of sanctions. So we don't know all that stuff. And when we get from the poll this answer, oh yes, I support the special military operation, we actually don't even know what the person is talking about or what he or she supports. So, and because of that, quantitative studies, they become, I guess, very, very interesting, because they can give us the insight of like, what is that in people's head, what they support or not, how they see the whole situation. So what they are going to do in this situation.
That's very important. That's very important. And do you think in such interviews, people are more open and are more willing to tell if they have problem with the official position, and they let go of their fears, so to say? Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. And this is sort of like a paradoxical thing with our study, because in official polls, people who are willing to talk, those are people who support the operation, the military operation. In our case, that's the opposite. So that was like very surprising for us, because for us, that was much more difficult to arrange interviews with people who support the special military operation, and even more difficult to arrange interviews with people who just don't have I mean, who say, well, I don't understand what's going on. I have no opinion about that. I don't want to think about that. But those people, then with people who participate in protests, like street protests and some other protest activities, or just don't support that military operation. So actually for us, it was like the opposite comparing to Poles. And a lot of people who does not support the military operation, they were willing to talk. And I guess that's because their voice was not represented anyhow in a public space. Because that was all about, oh yeah, Russian people support with a special military operation, of course. And like, yeah, we don't. But nobody like want to hear us. So yeah, that was kind of a paradox in our research.
How do you find the people?
We use a snowball sampling, and this is kind of in this specific situation, as well as in many situations when like we have like crisis or war or whatever, some dangerous situation, when people feel that it is dangerous to talk. I guess that's one of the best way to reach people, because snowballing provides trust, because you reach people through some contacts, friends of the friends. We also did it through social networks like different Facebook, Contacte, our personal networks.
You made quite a lot of interviews until now. How many?
More than 200 interviews. I mean, I surprised myself that, but I mean, that's thanks for the efforts of my colleague Svetlana Yerpedova, who basically was like the head of this project and who put a lot of efforts in organizing all that, and of those people who helped us. Because I mean, there is really like a group of people who work with no salary and who just put their own time on doing all that, and that's very amazing.
Yeah, no, that's really amazing. And I mean, these are all also long interviews. It's
that's like 1 hour interviews.
So that's quite a lot of material, I guess. So where did you conduct the interviews? It's mainly in St. Petersburg and Moscow, or also in other parts of the country?
Yes, so we conduct interviews everywhere, because most of our interviews, we conduct them via Zoom or via like Messenger, social media. Literally, we have interviews from like Moscow to Vladivostok. That's the range. But there is still, I mean, it's like the focus, I mean, the most of them comes from big cities. So for me, it was easier to just do something and talk to people, doesn't matter what kind of views they have. And I was also, it's also like a curiosity, because you have your own views, right? And you're like, well, how is that people can believe something different? And I mean, like, that's very important for sociologists or anthropologists. Like, you have to be a little bit open to people with like very different views, because that's what you have to do. You have to just understand their lives, and you have to understand why is it this or that. And that's the only way, like through that, you will be able to explain that, right? And without that, and that also demands like a respect for other people, for other person's position. I mean, even if it seems crazy to you, you still should have this like respect. Okay, this is what the person think. So whatever it is, it can be really bad from your point of view.
Okay, so maybe let's talk a little bit about, well, some preliminary results. Is there something that was particular surprising for you, or
there is like a group of people with whom we talk. This is like a group of, let's say, doubters, so like don't knowers, people who say, I don't understand what's going on, like they just don't understand what's going on. And for me, this very group was very surprising. Some of them are closer to like opposers, some closer to the supporters, but they're in general like, I don't understand what's going on. There can be different reasons for this war, and I know that can be the reason, this can be the reason, but I have no opinion about that. So those people, they sort of try to avoid, their general disposition is like avoidance. They try to avoid the war. They understand that something is happening. They understand that this something is bad, like sanctions hit Russia, and they believe that their life will be worse, but they still kind of, they want to believe that they will be able to deal with all of that. So they try to make a distance from this war and say like, well, we have Putin, and I personally don't understand why Putin started this war, but I hope they had enough information and like enough reasons to do that. They just did that. Okay, we're in this situation, whatever. People are trying to stay away from the state and try to stay away from this dirty politics and try to say like, well, it's not my business. There are special people who decide on all those political issues. I don't really understand what's going on. And that's very funny that they say that, because if we move to this further to this pole of like opposers and protesters, we see that some people also say that, well, I don't understand the reason for that war, but this war is bad. So that actually that's not necessary for you to understand the reasons, right? To produce like an opinion, to have an opinion. And so if we just go back to those doubters and I don't knowers, we understand that this, I don't understand what's going on, just I don't know the reasons, I don't have the access to like all the information in general about all that, and like propaganda is everywhere. So we understand that's not the reason why we don't have an opinion. There is some other reason why we don't have it, and they use it as a justification for like not having that opinion. And then and like this is the other pole, is the pole of opposers. And what is interesting here, that this pole is kind of much more homogeneous than the pole of protesters. So they almost all blame Putin, or like Putin and people around him for that. And they believe that the war brings nothing except horrible consequences for Russia, isolation, huge economic decline, and so on.
Can you also observe changes in the perception of the war? I mean, during these last weeks.
Well, we actually cannot see a lot of changes in interviews.
Maybe it's a little bit too early. Yeah?
The shift I see in this kind of very much an expectable thing, right? Predictable, that people like the first shock of this war, it is kind of calming down, and people try to figure out what they can do in those circumstances. So my colleague Svetlana Yurpilova, she also believed that like people who support the war, that like over time we see not the decline of support, but something like people have more doubts about the war and its reasons, the supporters. But I don't know if it's true or not. I mean, our data, I'm not sure that we can say it now. What was surprising for me that, for example, Bucha, and so now we know more, we have more and more evidences of the crimes of Russian army, right? Especially when Russian troops withdraw from Kyiv and Kyiv Oblast. But I mean, still people who support the war, they kind of tend, so some of them, of course, when you ask them, well, can you change, is it possible that you would change your opinion about the war? What should happen for you to change the opinion? And sometimes they say, well, the new facts should appear that I should see that Russian army is really like killing civilians for nothing and so on. But when you have cases like Bucha, people react like, well, we don't know actually what happened there. And maybe Russian army shouldn't leave Bucha, because I mean they protected people, and when they left, those Ukrainian nationalists came there and killed the people. So, and you understand that facts, actually we don't know how facts can change people's opinion. I mean, it's not like that we have more facts and people like, oh yeah, now we see the real nature of this war. Right. So I think that Russian society is also, I mean, people get used to the war, but the sanctions, they're there, they're here, but they have not really hit. I mean, Russian government, they really try to keep, so now the rate of exchange rates are really, I mean, you cannot buy dollars or euros in Russia, but exchange rates are really good. You cannot buy. But they're good. And I think they put a lot of efforts in like keeping that and pretending like, You see, those people, like, they want to like sanction us, they want to punish us, but they cannot do nothing with us, which tells me that, like, yeah, the huge disaster is in the future. But people also try to pretend. I mean, they try to orient themselves in those changed circumstances, and there are not that many changes we can have right now. Yeah, you cannot. It's difficult to travel outside of the country. Well,
yeah.
But you haven't tried that many times yet, right? So, yeah, we have to wait. I guess, like, if we look at Russian society, let's say it's September, when the summer will be over.
Okay.
And people come back to their workplaces mostly. So we will see much more changes in their moods and much more. So I guess I think that we should wait for some time to see real changes.
Yeah.
Now people just try to get used to what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, that's also the problem with economic sanctions. They are usually not immediate. That's the problem. We will see.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let's talk a little bit about a possible ending of the conflict. I don't know. I mean, what do you think from your insights, also from the interviews and so on? Is there a way out for Putin out of this situation without completely losing his face, without losing his authority among Russian people? What do you see? I mean, what are the possibilities?
I think there is no way out for him.
Yeah.
I think that's and I think that what makes the situation pretty bad, right? Because I mean, there can be different ways this conflict will evolve, right? But I mean, he cannot just stop it and say, well, we tried, thank you, bye. Because Russia is sanctioned. And I mean, even if some sanctions will be lifted, right? And they will be, if the war will be over, they will be lifted. That's still like a huge damage to Russia, just huge. Because, I mean, why people would invest in Russia is Russia within like really days can just be transformed in something else, right? It's not really reliable and it's just dangerous. Yeah, not all the sanctions will be lifted.
Yeah.
For sure. And also, they will be pretty difficult to justify for a lot of people who just made themselves to believe in causes of that war and made themselves to believe that, like, okay, we can like suffer for it a little bit. So they will ask, well, why? So why we even started doing that? We never reached anything. We never got anything from this war. And we was only punished, and the economy, we experienced a decline in economy. So we're losing our salaries, prices are rising. So why we even like started doing that if we never reached anything? And we see it also like in our interviews when people say like, well, yeah, even if I don't really understand the causes for this war, if they did it for nothing, that's bad. So they have to continue till they get something which they can say will be their victory. But what that can be, Donbass, they will get the Donbass region, expand the territories, like make Donbass the part of Russia. I guess this is the possible. And that's what they say, because there will be in Ossetia, there will be a referendum about joining Russia. In Abkhazia, I guess there will be a referendum, right? In Kherson, they say now, well, we don't need a referendum. We just ask Russia to take us, and they will say yes, of course, right? So, but in case of this scenario, the conflict itself first will not be over, because Ukraine will not give up its lands. And I mean, we see it now. And sanctions will not be lifted. And so also bad, still crisis. For Russian population, Putin will be able to say, yeah, that's what we want. Russian lands, very good. We just reunited Russian lands. We have like something like an empire we lost in 1991. great. But still, economic decline is still there. How to deal with it is not clear. So people will not be happy anyway. And this, like Donbass, those new territories like Donbass, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, that's not Crimea, that will never produce. I mean, people already saying like, well, why we need that actually? Those territories are poor and they now, like in case of Donbass, they're destroyed. And it's like impoverished population there, and we have a lot of our problems. So why do we need that? Well, because in case of Crimea, that was like, yeah, that's great. Crimea was always Russian land, so that will not be like in case of Crimea. So still, consequences, long-lasting consequences, will be bad for Putin. I don't think there is like, I mean, I believe that we will be just observing the collapse of his regime within 1 year, 2 years, maybe 5 years. And that will be very bad for Russia. And that will be very bad for Russian people. There is like no way until Putin will die tomorrow and some Russian leaders will say, yeah, okay, that was a mistake. Please forgive us. We stop, we take our troops back. We pay reparations to Ukraine. Please, just, that was a mistake. Until that happens, all other scenarios are just bad on my humble opinion. Yeah, I'm a pessimistic here.
Yeah. Well, me too, actually. I mean, in a sense, what you told us, that many people in Russia don't really care so much about the war, really want to know what's going on there, and so, I mean, this is maybe something which is also positive, that people are not so kind of invested in the war and they're completely, well, we want the victory and everything, you know.
Yeah, I would say that the fact that people are not invested, that is both like, can have positive and negative. I mean, that would be much worse if they would be invested, of course. I mean, there can be like different like paths, right? Through like that. Because those people, they're very much focused on their personal private lives, right? And they feel whatever the war doesn't like so far make a huge impact on those lives. And they're like, whatever, I have a lot of my problems. So why I would spend my time on reading news? Because I have to graduate it, I have to provide my family or whatever. But the thing is, so if the economic situation will become worse, they can say like, yeah, why we have this war? No, Putin, go away. We don't support you. We need somebody else. But there can be also like other way here. They can say, well, everything is bad, but nobody likes us anymore. We are completely cut from the whole world, and we already in this situation of war. So we have to accept that, and we have to just, fuck the world. We don't need you. We will be like our own. We just will develop our own Russian economy, and we don't want to deal with this, to have any of those like whatever democracy, human rights, all that just stuff. No, we don't need that. We want to be by ourselves. If you don't like us, fine. We don't like you either. So they can switch to kind of the acceptance, which comes just from because they have no choice, right? They have no choice. They're cornered like, okay, you don't want us, fine. We have our Putin, we don't like him, but we will be by ourselves. Yes, we still love our country, something like that. So and that's like this big, a lot of those people who have like no opinion about the war. That's kind of, they can switch.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't know like where.
Do you think that, I mean, it remembers me a little bit on the history of the Cold War. I mean, this is isolation. This is what I think many people still remember from the times of the Cold War and Soviet Union and so on, where it's also the world was kind of divided, and well, this bloc was we are on its own. But anyway, they also left this behind. So I don't know. Do they really want to go back there?
Well, it is an important thing, but those people who remember Cold War, they also remember perestroika in 90s. And that was like one of Putin's point, like one of the the strongest thing he ever did. And he said, he always addressed in his speech to that, like he said, like, you remember 90s? How was that? Like, complete economic collapse, like the mafia on the streets, we don't have it anymore because of me. And those people, they remember that, and it's just, whatever. We don't want to have 90s again.
Okay. Yeah.
So yes, if we will have our own country cut from the West, fine.
Yeah.
We're fine with that.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like it's not that easy. So
yeah, a little bit pessimistic ending, but what should we do? I mean, maybe we can talk a little bit about the possibilities, limitations of a public sociology in Russia today, and also how do you see the future of your group and in Russia? I mean, I think you're inspired by Michael Boroway here with this concept of public sociology, of course, and I like that very much as well. It's and I mean, it's really this idea that sociology should not be only academic, but really engaged in society, especially civil society, and politically active and so on. But yeah, I think, I mean, in a society like this, like in Russia today, that's so difficult, I imagine. How do you see the future of your group in Russia?
Well, the future looks pretty grim, I would say, for everybody so far. But I mean, we will continue working as long as we can. And we will continue doing as long as we can do what we do. So and so far it's possible. I hope that will be possible in the future, but that's not depends on us very much. So now we're planning to, besides we do the publications in Russian media and international media, we also soon will start working on like a big report to present our data for whomever can be interested in it. I mean, that will be completely public. But I cannot say so far. I guess we were lucky. We were never reached by like anybody, and nobody ever told us you should stop doing what you do.
Okay.
I hope we will be able to continue doing that as long as we can, but you cannot say, because now, again, all those new laws and like the whole situation in Russia, which becomes like much, much more repressive, like freedom of speech is in a very bad situation now, right? And you cannot really discuss the war very publicly.
Yeah.
Because there is now, it's only one right point of view, an opinion about that. So I don't know for how long it will be able to work how we work now, but I hope I hope it will be still possible. Well, if not, we will figure out something.
So you can still publish your work in Russia today.
I mean, publish online. That's not, I mean, the thing is that we are not even like an organization. It's difficult to ban us, right? We're just people who say like, yes, well, we're Public Sociology Lab Russia. It's kind of, they can say that we're foreign agents. I guess, like each of us. It's possible. But so far it didn't happen yet, so.
I wanted you to ask about your personal future. Are you going back to Russia anytime soon, or do you not expect to go back?
Not anytime soon.
Okay.
I really, I'm really worried about what can happen. Right? I mean, I don't want to be detained on the border or whatever, right? Because definitely I violate those new laws. Not say that the war is the war. Don't criticize what Russia is doing because you discredit some Russian army produced disinformation. So I definitely do all that, and I don't want to be arrested or whatever because of that. So I guess I'm not coming back to Russia anytime soon, and I just will wait until that clarify. All that will clarify anyhow. But we don't know when it happens, and I hope it will happen at some point.
Yeah, we will see. Yeah, difficult situation for you also.
Yeah, that's just, yeah. I mean, like, yeah, I guess many people, I mean, you know about that many people left Russia in the last 2 months. Just, yeah. And that's like always a question. So how much you're in danger if you're a journalist, if you're an activist. So those people who stay there really, like, for me, they're like sort of heroes because they really, they really risk a lot.
Yeah.
I'm just, for now, I'm trying to do my best being outside of Russia.
And also other members of your group are outside Russia, and still collecting interviews then online or?
Yeah, for our research group, I would say like the most members of our research groups is outside of Russia, but a lot of our volunteers are in Russia.
In Russia, yes. So.
And that's what makes me really worried. Yeah, I don't know.
That's
unpredictable. You don't know how it will turn out.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think this is a very important work that you do there, and very important research. I mean, I read about your work actually in an article in The Atlantic. Do you know that they mentioned your work? Yeah, there was a.
Oh yes, yes.
Your work is recognized. I mean, it's so difficult for us really to get an insight in what's going on in Russia today and how people think about this whole situation and what they even know, what their opinions are, how do they. It's so important, and really that's there are not many sources, also because many of Western journalists left the country, had to leave the country. They're also in a difficult situation, so it's really difficult to get an insight also for us now. So I really appreciate what you do there.
That was always, I would say, even before the war, it was like not that much information about Russia in general, because there's still like not much sociology done. I mean, there was like, even for me as a sociologist, when I want to study something, like, oh yes, we don't have data about that. You have to do everything yourself. But now it's really a problem. Now it's just really a problem because people are leaving, because all the data, because it's just hard to speak out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think we are going to wrap it up here. Thank you very much, Natalia, but also thanks the whole group for this very interesting work and important work that you are doing there. And Natalia, for the insight in what it's like to be a sociologist and a researcher in Russia today. Yeah, it's, I think, a very interesting, very important work and material that you are collecting there right now. And I'm very much looking forward to further analysis of this work and further publications and so on. So thank you very much. Thank you also for your time. I hope you found it interesting. Also, thanks and goodbye.